In this video, we will look at 4 more core-like games you should play while waiting for Armored Core 6. I also included a couple of runner-ups before moving on to the top of the list. First on the list is a cult classic. If you loved slow-ass mechs,
I can go slower.
then Hounds is your match in heaven. Build your dream mech and customize it to your heart's liking, as customization in Hounds probably exceeds what you can do in Armored Core. Do you want to build a short mech? How about a tall mech? How about putting guns on guns? Guns on guns on guns. Guns anywhere where you want to put it. You can do that. Does it have to make sense? Not really. It just needs to fire, so don't forget to set it up in your trigger controls. The campaign lets you play as a mercenary doing mercenary stuff, you know, the usual, expelling illegal immigrants,
That is the problem at hand.
blowing up residential houses, pretty basic stuff. The campaign is pretty much a tutorial to prepare you for the multiplayer. The online servers were shut down 13 years ago, so any hope of multiplayer has long gone. Unfortunate considering it's where Hounds truly shines. But if you're really into this type of gameplay,
My body used to experience much worse.
War Robot serves as a good alternative. Caveat here though is that customization is pretty bare bones since you mostly customize your weapon loadouts. I spent about $2 and I started steamrolling people playing on Android. If you don't want to spend $2, you can spend $20 to try out Hound's spiritual successor, Modular Asset Vehicle. If you prefer a much faster gameplay and you want to take a long trip down memory lane back to early 2000s, then Steel Lancer Arena International is the game you are looking for. Hacker aesthetics,
He's the one.
pop rock and post-grunge music, and back when Konami used to make good games.
a man?
Make a backup of this one.
The plot and the gameplay mostly revolved around you slaying other pilots of the same rank before fighting the big boss and advance to the next rank. I have to warn you though, this game is hard as f. If you're an absolute trash on controller like me, better get a chunky boy or you will get blown up just for trying to aim. Customization is great, but it's limited to the model you're building. If you're building a Kojima model, then you would need Kojima weapons and body parts. Overall, I would say the gameplay and feel of Steel Lancer is fairly similar to the 5th gen if you speed it up. Garrison Archangel is an arcadey fast-paced mech action game and probably would have placed at the top of this list if I didn't find the current number 1. Jump right into the arcade mode for a no-fuss mech-on-mech action and start brawling. No need to worry which mech to use as there are several presets you can choose from. The more you brawl, the more mechs you unlock. Don't be a button masher though because this is what you will mostly see. Now, if you prefer a more customized mech, then prepare some grinding in the campaign mode. The plot is pretty basic really. You play as a mercenary mech pilot called Ghost, doing mercenary stuff in the campaign mode. Each mission nets you cash for upgrades and body parts that you can use in mech customization for the survival or arcade modes or whatever custom mode you want to play in. If you don't like the grind, you can just use the parts from presets to build out your mech. All body parts are very customizable and fully functional. Unfortunately, customization does not really match up to the level of customization in Breakarts 2 as you can see here.
Because
But hey, at least you can build out White Glint and 9-Ball here. Overall, the playstyle and pacing of Garrison Archangel is pretty close to Armored Core for answer. Before we proceed, I will trade you 2 more core-like games for your like and subscribe. First runner-up is Zone of the Enders, the second runner. In Zone of the Enders, you play as a random guy working in Callisto, trying your best to make ends meet. It happens,
This is UJC Charon! Returning to Callisto!
then you find yourself inside the battle mech.
Ready for combat?
Combat is fairly straightforward. You press one button to attack, and your distance determines which weapon you're going to use. You use a sword when you're up close and guns when you're not. If you're feeling a little bit dangerous, press and hold your attack button. You don't have any customization options except for the sub-weapons you unlock throughout the game. Once you clear the game, you will get access to extra missions where you can use different variations of the base mech. In addition to that, you can use other mechs you meet in the story if you play in the versus mode. Next is my game of the year for 2022 basing on my playtime alone. In Warframe, you play as a Tenno, a special breed of children controlling bioengineered mechs called Warframe to fight sentients, a biomechanical species that rebelled against their creators. Having said that, ultimately, you just want to save your space mummy from the big bad man in the wall. The story and the lore are fairly extensive, but plenty of things in the game is hampered by grinding, so you'll probably end up watching a 9-hour-long lore video to get a better grasp of the story. Customization is fairly in-depth, but not in a traditional sense for mech games. You get to upgrade your weapons in Warframe by using mods, changing the stats by your chosen equipment. You can also get to alter the way your Warframe look, but it is mostly cosmetic. Anyway, if you like seeing big numbers go up, you would definitely like this game. If you like the combat in Neo 2 or Stranger of Paradise, then Gundam Breaker 2 is the game for you. You could probably get away with button mashing if you're a total beginner, though combat is much more satisfying once you incorporate different movesets in your playstyle. Laser rifles are probably the shit in the majority of Gundam games, but there's just something about deleting other Gundams with a bazooka. In terms of the plot, Gundam Breaker 2 is very light on the story side of things, considering there are far too few cutscenes in between missions. From what I gathered from the cutscenes, there's a war, we chase a guy, we fight him, he then becomes our friend, then we fight a girl with tentacles. Did that make sense? Probably not, because even the wiki page skipped that part. However, I've seen enough to know where this is going. Anyway, could just jump right into the missions and customization. Speaking of customization, Gundam Breaker is pretty comprehensive and it's probably the closest a Gundam game can get close to being an Armored Core game. Getting equipment is pretty straightforward. The weapons are crafted by getting the schematics and materials through missions. Missions also reward you complete body parts, so there's no need to craft them. Alternatively, you can buy a complete Gundam set from the shop and use their body parts individually in your builds. Some body parts are upgradable to a certain point where you can transform it into an entirely new one, so some lower level parts are not a total waste of space. After clearing a couple of areas, you get to upgrade basic stats like HP and boosters among others. You can also tweak bonus stats. Choosing the right part to fit your playstyle adds depth to the overall gameplay. For example, since you can't just attach missile launchers like you could in most core-likes, you would need to find an arm or a backpack, or even a leg that fires missile. That means you're going to have to sacrifice something else to make your build work, like having a lower HP or lower movement speed. Now, since Bandai Namco cannot be asked to port their Gundam games to PC, maybe except for the new Gundam Breaker, you will be using Google Translate a lot when remaxing your build. You could play Gundam Breaker 3 instead, considering it has been translated to English, but the game leaned more into the Gunpla stuff.
Everybody knows you never go full
Gameplay-wise, Gundam Breaker 2 is pretty close to the 5th gen.